Oh my God.
So there was no video. This is painful when you don't have a rehearsal, apparently. But anyway, we thought you would appreciate that based on the idioms gone wrong earlier in the week on Twitter and in your podcast, Too Many Men. Shayna Goldman, how are you today?
I'm great. I am as good as I can be right now after getting fueled by a Hannah Montana intro. That is incredible.
Now, funny enough, we won't say who in the control room knew exactly what you were talking about. But also, I thought, wait a second, is that the intro to the show, Hannah Montana? And then I quick Google that is like, no, it's not the show. It's the Best of Both Worlds is the show intro. That's just a different song. So I was not a Hannah Montana. My kids were not in that age group yet. I was more in Dora the Explorer and all of that at the time. So I didn't want to play Dora the Explorer song when you had made such a great Hannah Montana reference on Twitter the other day. It was fantastic.
You know what? I wasn't a Hannah Montana person either when it was live. It was just, I worked for Disney on the side. And when they like rolled through on Disney Plus, we had to like rewatch all the shows to make sure they worked. And I had to watch the whole series. So I started picking up on I knew I liked Miley songs because like who among us doesn't? But
Right.
now like I like to just mix those in. You know, you never know when you need a good Hannah Montana quote to really spark up your day.
Well, please consider this intro a real feather in your map.
It's the intro that, you know, you guys didn't give me a slice of rice. This is the entire bag.
So which goal yesterday in the Montreal, Florida game is the straw that broke the camel's back when you consider that there was 10 goals in that first 15 minutes? How crazy of a game was that, Shayna? Seriously.
That was wild. And the straw that broke the camel's back apparently was the one that threw Sam Montembeault back in because I thought he could have gone back in sooner, right? We talked about this. We should see more goalie rotations, even if it's just to settle down the players. Like whatever you can do, you got to do it. I don't understand why they didn't go for that sooner. Marty St. Louis is like one of the like on the cutting edge coaches. See, that is an accurate one on the cutting edge.
Okay, good. Yes.
Fair. But I wanted to see a little more rotation. I would say that was the goal for me. That was like, all right, it's over.
So when you look at the Eastern Conference wild card race, and Florida is clearly entrenched in it, the Sabres are in it. They take on Philadelphia tonight. Ottawa had another tough loss last night at home against Colorado. How are you viewing this with the Penguins and Islanders currently holding the two spots? Who are the contenders, the real contenders? Who are the pretenders? Who's going to latch on to these two spots when it's all said and done?
It's the Islanders. And now that I'm saying that, they're going to turn everything around and fall apart because that's what the Islanders do. You give them an ounce of faith and they collapse. I don't understand it. Everyone has to count them out for them to be good. But like it does feel like the Islanders, like they're doing this without Barzal healthy. They're doing this without Wallstrom. They're picking it up at 5-on-5, which is something we can't say often about them. And their power play below the surface, even though the results aren't where they should be, are very, very, very strong. And I think the Islanders are a team that it's like if they can just make it, see what they can do because they have the whole big body, physical playoff hockey that everybody wants and loves. I feel like the Penguins are doing everything they can to not make it. Like I don't know what's happening. And now it's like they're getting, okay, this is going to sound bad, but like, because we're talking about player injuries, but it does feel like it's someone in the hockey universe is trying to stop them from their own mistakes, right? Like they went for Granlund and it makes no sense. And it's like, it's okay. You can play without him. You got Kulikov and it's like, that's not the right move either. And it's like, it's okay. You can manage on without him too.
And Bonino.
Bonino, same thing, right? Let's bring him back because he was so good with us before, and then that doesn't really, materialize. But again, I go back to goaltending, right? Like, I like Tristan Jarry. I think he could be a good goaltender. But what we've seen out of him of late is just really, really puzzling. And then, I also like Casey DeSmith. I think he could be a good goaltender. Like, is it a team or is it the goalies in Pittsburgh right now that are like creating this issue?
I think it's a little of everything. The goalies are definitely one of the leading problems. It feels like either goalie could be a good 1B, but I wouldn't want them as my 1A. And I would not want them as my 1A when you're trying to maximize on 3 years that you have Crosby, Malkin, and Letang all together. It feels like they're doing the most and then everything else is falling apart. It hurts that the Penguins don't have strong enough forward depth. Like Jeff Carter's struggling so much as their 3C. And then they brought in someone who doesn't even play center anymore to replace him. So, that's a problem right there. But it feels like goaltending is probably leading the way, because once it comes to the postseason, we know what Tristan Jarry has done in the playoffs. And, unless that suddenly changes, can he steal a series? I don't think so if they need him to.
I love putting things on a tee for you because of your wit, your sarcasm. What's your big takeaway from the general managers meetings in Florida?
That the general managers need to reprioritize everything if we're talking about coach's challenge right now, of all things. I mean, there's an easy rule to make about the trade related scratches. Like, you can only do for X number of games. You have to get off your horse at a certain point, right? Like, it just feels like they consistently prioritize the wrong things. And now it's like, let's talk about expanding coach's challenge. And while there might be a point to it, right? I think the smartest thing they did was add in the ability to review potential major penalties so they can really get them right, because that should be the priority. And I feel like the timing, it's not anything too bad, but like offside plays are still very dramatic and annoying. And goalie interference, nobody knows what it is. Marty has read the rule how many times front and back, and we still can't get these calls consistently right. So it's like, why are you adding more to get wrong, more to slow down the game before, at least, I wouldn't even say perfecting it, but getting this to a stronger level, right?
Yeah, another idea, and we talked to Darren Dreger yesterday about it, and was to broadcast the GMs meeting so we can know what they're talking about and who's right and who's wrong. Duffer mentioned we should broadcast arbitration hearing in the summer. Why not? We want hockey content in the summer, broadcast that. But the most fun of all would be broadcasting player safety meetings, like Jordan Binnington yesterday getting a 2-game suspension. Duffer, you brought that up as well. I'll give you the credit. What was Jordan Binnington thinking? Why is he pumping the crowd after he gave up 4 goals? Like I said, the best part of last night would be Jake Allen trying to get in the fight and then pump the crowd after it's 9-4. Let's go. Like that was dumb. But what do you say if we broadcasted all these meetings and player hearings and all of that for people like us to really see what's going on in there?
Well, I think Jordan Binnington is the embodiment of big loser energy. I mean, it is as big as it gets, pumping up the crowd after allowing goals. And if it wasn't for Hartman, that his teammates could actually be like, something is wrong, I don't know if he would have gotten that much support from his teammates either. But for your points on should they televise this stuff, why not? Give us some drama, give us some content. Nobody is going to want arbitration hearings televised. The general managers don't, because they love to take the opportunity to like throw the hammer and be like, you're a restricted free agent, you have no rights, let me tear you, limb from limb. So would you be so willing to do so if everybody knew you were the bad guy all along? Because for now, fans generally look at it like the player is selfish for advocating for themselves when there's nothing wrong with that. So I mean, it would be kind of funny to see that, but the GM meetings, why not? This is what you're debating. Some of you are going to come out heroes, some of you are going to be bigger villains than before. Why not? The NBA would totally do it. If the NBA does it and gets good ratings, maybe the NHL will do like a dollar store version of it. That's like 1 ounce of the drama.
That's what I love when Marty said, like with the arbitration hearings, like do it like C-SPAN style, like, right? Just
so well, I'll just give you a great example, right? So I went to arbitration twice. Once we settled before arbitration. So everybody would be waiting, right? Oh, at noon, there comes the Marty Biron arbitration hearing. Oh, sorry, it's settled. We're going back to old replays, right? But the second time, and this was a great example. So I'm on my side of the table with my agent and representative from the NHLPA, and then the Sabres are on the other side of the table. And at one point, Darcy Regier was the GM, grabbed a piece of paper, and he started reading like notes and the comments. And our representative from the NHLPA was amazing. He got up, started yelling, like it was almost like, objection, Your Honor, objection. He can't read from a piece of paper. This is not allowed. And he's yelling. And I was so entertained by that. And I don't know if it only happened in mine or if it happens in every one of them, but I'm like, there's something that the public should see and know is what, like, really sets off these people in arbitration hearing. Like I still tell the story, and that was like 2002 or whatever. It's 20 years ago, and I still remember it. I got my representative a nice bottle of rum or whiskey or something for doing a great job, because I was entertained all day. So I think that would be fun.
Yeah, and that's a well-earned bottle right there. I think the fun part of it now, because I'm a nerd, is that you can use like analytics in arbitration hearings, and that's all okay. So I would love it if it's like, here's a chart, and just see how mad the general manager gets if it's like a chart they completely don't understand, and they're like, well, sorry, you can't read it, but our point still stands. Like, that's the content I crave.
Oh, that would be amazing. Now, very quickly, because we do want to hit Devon Levi here in a second, but because we're talking contracts and next contracts, what is Vince Dunn going to get? People need to know that since January 1st, he's the highest scoring defenseman in the league. He's currently got the longest active point streak in the league at 11 games, and he scored the game-winning overtime goal last night for Seattle. So what are we looking at for Vince Dunn, 26 years old, restricted free agent, currently making $4 million?
This is going to be such an interesting one. So if we go through Evolving Hockey's model, they have it for what he would have made if you were a free agent last year. And what their model spit out was 4 years by $4 on average, which isn't a big raise, but he didn't have this breakout season yet. If he went to term at the time, they had 8 years by $6 million. That seems like far too low, right? You know, his market value per Dom Luszczyszyn's model is $10.8 million on average over the next 7 seasons, which is what he would make on the open market as an unrestricted free agent, which he's never going to be. So that number we know is sky high. It's unrealistic, and that's completely fine. Here's the little wrinkle in it. Ron Francis has never, ever signed a player on average for more than $6 million. The highest contract he has ever signed between Carolina and Seattle is $5.9 million on average to Grubauer. If we take out the goaltender, it's $5.5 million. And no defenseman in Seattle makes more than $4.6 million on average. And no player overall makes more than 5.5. We saw Schwartz sign for 5.5. We saw Burakovsky as well. Now, Dunn, I think, is taking it to another level. But I was trying to look at other defensive contracts that Francis signed, and we look at Slavin. It was $5.3 million, and that's a 7% cap hit percentage at the time of the signing. So that would be about $5.8 million next year, which is not a lot. It's not near what he's worth. So I am curious how much Francis will break the bank and go for something a little splashier, because this is a player that has earned it. If I were to guess, I'm going to say 7.5. I feel like that seems cautious enough for Francis, mixed with how good Dunn's been. Do I think Dunn's worth more than that, considering his age and what he's done? Absolutely. Do I think he's going to get it in Seattle? Probably not. I can't see him getting to the 8s or 9s, because those are, generally speaking, numbers. The 9s for, McAvoy and Fox. And then sometimes we see players like Nurse and Werenski get sprinkled in, and it's a little bit more than what they're worth. But when we go through other defensemen who have signed contracts outside of those 4, we really don't see anyone go to those heights. So I'm going to guess that $7 million range.
There's been a lot of $9+ million defensemen that have signed that you're scratching your head, right? Like Seth Jones at 9 over, Nurse 9 over. So you're like, okay. Yeah. Because Duffer brought it up, and we are quickly running out of time, and we hate this. Devon Levi. Okay, so 2 Northeastern players have signed their entry-level contracts. We're still waiting to see if that's going to get done. I think it will, but we're still waiting to see. Could he be a player for the Sabres this year, a little bit down the stretch, next year? What do you see? And I know I watched his highlights. I watch him. I think he would probably need a year in the AHL. But what do you see when you look at numbers and what he's been able to accomplish through his college career?
Yeah, he's been really impressive so far. It's tough because the Sabres have 3 goalies, right? A 3 goalie rotation, you even said, is not good to have. So 4 goalie rotations, even trickier. But I don't know. I think that there could be some value, even if they're saying, let's give him 8 games before his contract slides, something like that. I think there's value to it. Here's the speed at the NHL level, catch up, get used to it, just get your toes wet. And then you can practice with that in mind over the summer. I think that there would be something really interesting, because we're not seeing any goalie in Buffalo absolutely own the net and crush it to the point where we're like, no, nobody else can come into the fold. I think putting him in a locker room with Craig Anderson, who has that calmness and that stability to him still at this point in his career, I think that's super valuable. And if these games matter, it's going to be tougher because you don't want to put that pressure on the player off the bat. But if they're far enough out of it, or it's not like do or die moments, why not?
Absolutely. Shayna, terrific insight as always. Sorry we got to fly. We'll see you again next Friday.